Whole nation. Welcome to another episode of the Renegade Rundown. Just my lonesome, Georgitis here with you, owner, operator at the Renegade Report, renegadereport.substack.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining us as I give us a few minutes for people to get in the room. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you're over on Twitter, we appreciate you. You can still comment, everything like that. If you ever get a chance to come over to YouTube and hit that like and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. The latest news to come out of Tallahassee, the coaching staff is complete. We had a pretty long conversation, went back and forth Tuesday, talking about what could possibly happen. The wide receiver coach, I can't remember if it was done or not, or we were debating when it's going to get done. And then the next thing was, what's going to happen on defense? Are we done? Because we already had 5 coaches on staff. That's basically how you break it down. 5 coaches on either side, 5 on offense, 5 on defense. Some places do it different, and they'll have it unbalanced. If you look at Nebraska's staff, and this is where a lot of the confusion came in on their defense, they had multiple linebackers coaches. And they had Tony White coaching the secondary. So coming over here, in this staff, we already had Pat Surtain. That was a huge thing, keeping him here for another year. Got him locked down. So Pat Surtain, one of the hottest names in coaching, has done an excellent job. He's coaching corners only. So we brought in Evan Cooper as our quote-unquote safeties coach, to coach the back end. That doesn't leave much room, okay? And everybody that I had talked to, every single person with any kind of insider knowledge, they told me Pat is not going nowhere. John Papuchis will be here. And I'm okay with that. He's a great special teams coordinator. Some of the other people on the show have questioned whether or not that's him or the analyst, how much he really has to do with that. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and that he's a big part of that special teams. I think when people think of special teams, they just think the kicker and the punter, but there's a whole lot goes into that. We have never had a special teams that blocked punts and kicks the way that his guys do. So the way he sets up his fronts and stuff, I'm a big fan of Papuchis there. The big question would be, will he be off the field as a special teams coordinator? Will they have him coach outside linebackers and bring in another linebacker coach like Derek Nicholson? A lot of people wanted him to come in, a lot of names out there. But officially, we get the word today. The word today is he will remain special teams coordinator and linebackers coach. Along with that, guys, if you're not like me and crazy into this, every 24 hours a day, the rules around coaching have changed. Previously, you had the 10 coaches I mentioned off the field, and everybody else were analysts. Very limited in what they could do. Coaching at practice, recruiting, things of that nature. They basically were just reviewing film, analyzing recruits, analyzing players on the field, providing Mike Norvell with more information, the coordinators with more information, doing everything basically to keep those guys where they can just recruit and coach the guys on the field. The new rule is they're actually associate or assistant head coaches. Excuse me, not head coaches, assistant or associate coaches. So what this means is, and this is something that took effect, I believe, last year, Odell Haggins, who is still with the program, it took a lesser role as I forget what the exact title he has, but now in that new role as an associate head coach, he will be able to coach defensive line. So along with that, you get the announcement of Papuchis coaching the linebackers, but you also get the announcement that Ernie Sims will be the assistant linebackers coach. Now, for people that are confused reading that press read out, that doesn't mean he's an on-field coach. Ernie Sims is still an off-field coach. Just it's not considered an analyst anymore. They're legitimate assistant coaches. He can go out there and coach on the field the whole 9 yards, just like you saw him this year. Okay. The next question, when it comes to these linebackers, I already told you Nebraska had 2 different linebackers coaches on their staffs. So the question is, does Papuchis coach inside linebacker, Week and Sam, and then the outside linebacker? I'm not sure how that's going to work, okay? You've got 3 linebackers out there. It's my opinion, and I assume the way my mind works, that Papuchis would cover outside linebackers, and then Tony White would help with the inside guys along with Ernie Sims, being able to really grow as a coach and get a ton of experience helping those guys out. And he's a guy who has done it. Ernie Sims has done it on the field. He was at UCF. I believe, for a year or two before he came down here. But he's got all the potential in the world, and could possibly earn a role as a linebacker coach in the future. I would not be surprised one bit if he helps out this year with the inside guys, and then next year either Pat Surtain or Evan Cooper goes away somewhere, and we end up with one DB coach, and Sims ends up getting a job, or somebody like D. Nick or whoever they decide to bring somebody in. But for this current year, that is the layout, and that's the only information I can't really confirm for you, whether he'll be coaching the outside linebackers or the inside linebackers. The other coach, wide receiver coach, offensive coordinator from UCF. I believe he was the offensive coordinator, associate head coach at UCF. Tim Harris comes down and fills that role for Florida State. Again, another one that people weren't, super fired up about. But I talked about it on here the other day. We missed out on a lot of guys. Of all the positions, there were just so many names that came out for wide receiver coach. The most recent before Harris was Tyquan Underwood. Once he eventually passed on it, then we got a bunch of names, including Tim Harris. You heard Cody Burns, Lonnie Galloway, all these different names. But it ends up being a guy who, I don't know, people try to say he's a glorified running back coach and all these things. But when you look at it, he's done a pretty damn good job in everything he's done. He was a state championship coach at Booker Washington, had a pretty quick rise and done some pretty good things. So just in this offense and what it is, I'm not going to, go crazy. I think it's a good hire. I think with the staff really needed a mix of on-field coaching, acumen, and recruiting. It needed to get a lot younger, and I think you've done that with this staff. I think especially the ties to Florida have been just largely fixed, which is really huge. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Ryan Blackman, Ed Lemix, my guy from DeLuna Coffee, Jeremy Ivins. Appreciate all you guys joining in. Let me know what you think. I know a lot of people are upset, and it's been a common theme here the past month. Like, the writing was on the wall. As soon as Gus Malzahn's name came up and they're talking about coming here, I told you guys, Thomas Castellanos is it. They're gonna grab Castellanos. There's no way. It's his dream school. He always wanted to come here. Now he's in a position. He ended up going to UCF because Florida State would not recruit him to play quarterback. Now the guy that he recruited him out of high school to play quarterback is at Florida State. It was a slam dunk. I just didn't see any way it wouldn't happen. And especially in the first year of Gus's offense, he's going to want to get back to basics, where his bread is buttered, running the football with a running quarterback. Does that mean an NFL-style quarterback, a dual threat guy that wants to throw for 5,000 yards can't be successful here? Does that mean we can't recruit them? No. Okay. Does Gus Malzahn coming here just immediately equate to, Luke Kromenhoek left because he couldn't succeed in this offense? I'm not saying that at all. It seems like people want to make it out like that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying put yourself in a Luke Kromenhoek's shoes, okay? You're Luke Kromenhoek. You signed up to play Mike Norvell's offense, which is from the same base, but he has way more 3, 5, 7-step drops, reading pass coverages, and things of that nature than Gus Malzahn does. Even Jordan Travis, when he was here. Do you guys remember how many called runs Jordan Travis had? For 2 years, we were screaming at the screen, like, why not running? Why are we just still dropping back and all this stuff? Well, he ended up, becoming a great passer, did a lot of things, and ran a ton. But the majority of his runs were scrambling and taking off. And that's a lot of what this offense, I think, will be this year. A lot of called runs for Thomas Castellanos and throwing the deep ball, and which he's been pretty good at. He got a lot better in a year-over-year going in an offense that wasn't necessarily for him. But I think you get back to a lot more of what he did in 2023 for Boston College when he had, like 1,000 rushing yards. When you look at his passing numbers, they're not that bad. I think Plant the Spear posted his deep ball percentage was something like 39%, with 6 touchdowns and 3 picks this past year. Not too bad. He can throw the ball. Folks acting like, he's 5'9", he can throw it off. No, he can throw it. One of the biggest issues people have is the bad picks. Him reading coverage and not seeing ghosts and throwing it to somebody. I just think largely Gus's offense will take a lot of that out. One-on-one, it'll be a guy wide open. It'll be a play action, and we'll find out. But yeah, my guy Gus, the track record just isn't there. I already put you in Luke Cromenhawk's shoes. Another thing that everybody's upset about, and we're about to get very soon into the latest portal news. I wanted to let this thing fill up a little bit while I go on my rant. Okay, people wanted Caden Saltier. People wanted Dampier, the kid from New Mexico, and they're upset. Well, why did we settle? We settled just like we settled with DJU last year, guys. That's revisionist history. Okay, we talked a lot about this. Once we signed DJU, I looked at the positives and figured out, well, this is what they brought him in here to be a game manager. If he can just keep that 3-to-1 touchdown ratio of a good running game like he did at Oregon State, we'll be okay in a transition year. Maybe we can even get to the ACC championship. That didn't work out. There was no offensive line. But we did not sign DJU until January 1st. We were passing up all the deadlines and waiting on Cam Ward. We had Cam Ward and DJU on campus, I believe, the same week. That's who I wanted. I thought it wasn't even competition. Far and away, Cam Ward was the better product. We ended up getting DJU. This go-round, this team, this coaching staff, they just completely changed everything, changed most of the coaches. They are in win mode right now. So what would it mean to go over after Caden Salter, who they were going after? He had planned to visit before Castellanos is pretty much, silent committed and made his visit on that Wednesday. He wasn't going to commit that Friday unless they offered him some $3 million, and I get it if that's what people want to do or think that Florida State should do. But how are you going to sell to one of these finished quarterbacks that wants to play for a year and go to the NFL? Well, we don't have any offensive linemen. You have no idea what our defense is going to be. Don't have any idea of any of this stuff. But sign with us and help us get these guys out of the portal. It's just a tall task. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody can show me a stat of really good players that transferred into programs that won 2 or 3 games the year before. We'll see. I think getting Castellanos to be willing to come to a 2-10 and do all this, I think it's a big win, and you take it and roll it. There's also, Florida State is what it is. 3 national championships. The standard is the standard. All that is true, and that's where this thing needs to go. But as far as the 2025 season, y'all let me know what your expectations are. What do you think would be a win? I said 7 wins would be a hell of a win for 2025 on the timeline. People were at my third. Is it 8 wins? Is it 9 wins? I'm not sure. But if you can if Thomas Castellanos can get you to 7, 8 wins, gets you a bowl game, then you'll have something to sell. You'll have a core built. You'll have these freshmen, sophomores, and now juniors from the 23, 24 classes to have something to sell to a Caden Salter, one of these top, quarterbacks. And Yanni, I hear you. Yanni says 10 wins minimum for FSU. Well, then Mike Norvell should have been fired in 2020, in 2021, and he should have been fired in 2024, no question, which is a fair point. It's a very fair point. But here we are, and they gave him a chance. He hired a brand new staff, and they're going to make a run for it. And he don't have 3 years. He's got 1 year. So UF wins 7 games this year, and they're on top of the world. They're getting ready for a title run next year, they think. Coming off 5 wins. We had 3 wins and then 5 wins and then all the momentum off of 5 wins to go to 10 wins and then a playoff. So to me, 7, 8 wins and success, this coaching staff will be here next year. Okay. 10 wins, 11 wins. I mean, that's just, I said it's living in la la land if that's what you expect. That's a ceiling to me. And I would love to get there. I think it's possible. We'll see when we get into some of these names. If they get them in here, it can get done. But yeah, just the idea of we're FSU and we shouldn't be getting these quarterbacks like this and that person. We shouldn't be losing Luke Cromenhawk. I would tell you, look around. Alabama's backup quarterback, SMU's backup quarterback, multiple teams, other teams in the playoffs, backup quarterbacks. These guys are leaving, okay? And they're not having coordinator changes. They're not going to be learning a brand new offense. They're not going to be sitting behind, as everybody wants to point out, a 5'9" guy that runs. Do you think Luke Cromenhawk wanted to take second snaps behind that all year? No. And as the reporting has come out, that whole situation with Luke, back and forth, was he offered $1 million? Was he not offered $1 million? Here's what I think happened. I don't think Luke, just as soon as the season was over, was like, okay, it's going to take $1 million because that's starting quarterback money nowadays for me to stay. I think what happened is he was probably locked in to go fight for that starting quarterback. He looked at the depth chart and look, I'm number one. I'm at the very top. It's probably intimated to him something along the lines of, who will bring in. They probably talked about bringing in a quarterback to compete. And when he found out and saw it was going to be Castellanos, ain't going to be no competition. I mean, just like all of us sitting at home, it's clear to see that Castellanos was going to be the guy. So he had to decide, do I want to sit behind Castellanos, try to make this thing come back my third year? Do I maybe take a red shirt next year? I think where the $1 million number came in was like, look, if I'm not going to have a chance to be the starting quarterback, if you want me to sit around for a year and pass the buck down the road, it's probably going to take $1 million. So I think that has to do with it. I think everybody freaked out when they saw Luke Kromenhawk as a number one portal quarterback. And that gets to another point I want to make before I run down this list of people we've offered, people we've lost, all that stuff. Just because somebody is number one in the portal on those rankings on 247 does not mean shit, okay? And I'm guilty of it. I got on here last year and I told you all you guys about a blue chip ratio, how it was 70% because we signed 10 blue chip portal guys. Well, the high majority of those portal guys that we signed from Alabama, from Georgia, all these D1 programs, what did they come in here and do? Not shit. They didn't do anything. When you're signing transfer portal guys based on high school rankings or potential, it's a crapshoot. It's the same as recruiting high school. It's the same exact thing. And anybody that actually follows recruiting and just doesn't follow it on signing day knows that 80% of high school guys burn out. They don't make it. Now, Clemson kept 140 people and, all these things, walk-ons and all that stuff. So they'd have a ton of guys. They'd sign small recruiting classes. But guys, Georgia signs 30 people every year. Do the math. Without red shirts, that's 90 people in 3 years. Okay? In 4 years, which is your actual, your amount of time that a draft class normally comes in, again, without red shirts, red shirt juniors, red shirt seniors, things of that nature. That's 120 guys. And they're going to take 5 or 10 out of the portal every year, too. It's a number game. Like, half of the teams in the country don't have anybody left from 2022. They're all gone. They've all transferred to different places. There's one particular school I saw that didn't have a single recruit left from 2022. Now, a lot of these guys, these high school guys that Florida State got from 20 to 22, same thing. It did not pan out. But what we learned from that as a fan base, and I'm pretty sure the coaching staff learned from that as well. I think they signed those guys last year because they kind of wanted to supplement their high school recruiting, let some guys get in here, and they truly believe in the core they had built up. The offensive line returning 13,000 snaps, the defensive linemen that had been here, for 4, 5, 6 years, the linebackers, everybody. They believed in it. It didn't pan out. So this year, what do we need to do? As much as I want to hate on Florida people and my Florida buddies that I go back and forth with, they were right. We need to go after guys, regardless of whether JUCO, FCS, Arkansas, Indiana, UCF, Nebraska, it does not matter. We need guys who have put reps on tape. Put it on tape. Put up the statistics. We know what they can do at this level. In this day and age, in 2024, more than any time ever before, regardless of what ESDC, EPN, Big Ten, Fox Network, regardless of what anybody tells you, there is more parity in college football than ever. For the people that are like, oh, we're just taking UCF's whole team, we're just taking Nebraska's whole team, that ain't the standard. Well, them UCF quarterbacks did pretty freaking good at Oregon. That's like, I don't even know how many times or how many examples you need. CJ Campbell did damn good at Florida State. He left and did damn good elsewhere. Okay. Tons of guys coming from smaller schools and things of that nature can make a difference. And when you look at just how bad Florida State was at blocking, at running the ball last year, it's easy to see why. Sure, the Big 12 may not be the best conference, but it's not that far behind the ACC. You think the Big 12 doesn't have teams like Boston College, Stanford, Cal, all these other teams that were on our schedule, teams that we lost to? They do. And when you look at this, DJU, I forget who did this stat. It might have been one of the War Chain guys. But DJU and Brock Glenn took 250 snaps at quarterback. They had 25 sacks. Luke, 84 attempts, 25 sacks. Guys, he was not going to be the answer to this. Okay, just is what it is, and we'll move on. Let me calm my dogs down real quick. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Well, they just got a firm yelling to. But before I get into the names that are possibly coming in, let's list some of the exits. Jackson West, tight end, gone. Drill Powers, tight end, gone. Brian Courtney, tight end, gone. Wide receiver Darion Williamson, who is here forever and just whatever reason could not put it together, gone. Defensive end Lamont Green, Boots Jr., gone. Julian Armella, probably your highest. He might be. I think he's your highest ranked offensive line from that 2022 class. Gone. Destin Hill, your star receiver. He was going to be number one on the top of my board at receiver going into next year. Gone. Inexplicably. Paul's ass. Omar Graham Jr. Here's one that we can count as coming back. He entered the portal and came back. And a lot of people are comparing this to DJ Lundy last year, but it's apples and oranges. DJ Lundy literally transferred out and went to Colorado. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. Then he came back. Omar Graham Jr., this is something that's a lot more common with teams. We see a couple guys at Georgia do it every single year. We had Pat Payton and a couple other guys do it last year where they hit the portal, they either don't get the response they want at the portal or the NIL collective where they're at steps up and makes it worthwhile. I think last year, these guys that hit the portal and did this and that, I think the NIL had a whole lot to do with them coming back and staying, much to the detriment of the team. Omar Graham Jr., I'm not reporting any facts. I haven't talked to the guy, but I don't think Florida State offered him some big number. I think he just kind of was humbled a little bit, or maybe realized he had it a little bit better at home than he thought. Marvin Jones Jr., another one of these guys. I'm not going to hate a take like that. They took Jermaine Johnson from Georgia, and that worked out. But just a different type of player. There's a little bit more projection there. It did not work out. That he's out. I imagine he wasn't a big fan of the 3-3-5 and wanting to go back to play off the ball. That was the whole reason he came here from Georgia. So we'll wish him luck and see if he can go somewhere to a 4-2-5 and be a part of those offenses that work or defenses that fit what he wants to do. This one hurt. This one was tough. Byron Turner Jr., but it's the same thing. Kind of a undersized DN, a pass rush DN in a 4-2-5. But in this 3-3-5, he was going to have to be an offensive linebacker, do different things. So he's gone. Tomiwa Durajaye, same thing. He's gone. He's out of here. So, yeah, kind of the entire, nucleus and everything that Norvell brought together those first 3 years, guys, the majority of those guys, they're gone. If you watch the Tony White interview, his introductory press conference, there was Gus Malzahn and him back to back. He said some things in there that gave me a chub. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was like fist pumping. Okay. He talked about in college football these days, how you simply cannot just sit in one front game after game, down after down, and not expect these offenses to figure out what you're doing. These offensive coordinators, the NFL mixing down the just depth of these older players and the ability to do different things in college football. In this day and age, guys are going to pick you apart. They are just going to pick you apart. So as much as it sucks to kind of lose these guys, I couldn't be more excited about the 3-3-5, running different fronts, doing things like that. And another comment on that, I kind of butchered his words there, but also, that thing of just sitting in the 4-2-5 that drove us nuts, staying in the front. And he hit the nail on the head. He said, you can't just sit there with four guys, not stunt, not stem, not do anything, and then just overpower the offense. It doesn't happen. It's so rare. In Florida State, and I think that was extremely poignant when you look at Florida State and what Adam Fuller did for his defense in 2024. He had that. In 22 and especially 23, FSU had a defensive line that was insane. Looking back at that 2023 defense, holy shit, we shouldn't have gave up a touchdown all year. We shouldn't have gave up 2 touchdowns the entire year, okay? To have Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, it was an extremely, extremely nasty defense, okay? Along with the other guys in 2022 and 23, the Kier Thomases, to have Kalen DeLoach and Caden Bethune behind them. There is so much they could have done walking down linebackers, standing up Pat Pay and Pat Payton and bringing a linebacker off the edge, et cetera, et cetera. And when we saw those things, and the rare times we saw him do that, defense looked a lot better. Randy Shannon, God bless him. Thank goodness he went down the road. Just him running the defense for a couple of weeks, you saw a lot more of that stuff. And that 4-2-5, the only damn blitz we saw was from a corner coming from the field side from 60 freaking miles away. So I'm fired up. I'm not hurt. Like I said, Byron Turner Jr., that one kind of hurts my feelings. But look, the position changes. It's a different deal, so you can't blame those guys for leaving. Shout out again to everybody in the chat. It's blowing up. My guy Tomcat, Bobby, the realistic Canes fan, T. Murray, Sean Willis, Yanni, Prince Bowie, new to this, James Fountain, Turn Tally and Mulatto 6. We appreciate all you guys, everybody, for joining in. Look, the chat rolls by a little bit faster than I catch it. I like to run through it and give shout outs to everybody here. Really love to talk to you guys. You are my fans. You keep this channel running. And as somebody who came from, construction, the restaurant business, managing restaurants till I figured out I couldn't make any more money becoming a lumber guy at a lumber mill than a pipe fitter for 10 years of my life, working shutdowns, 105 hours a week, 84 at minimum. Like when I was doing that, my go-to was Florida State. Like when I had a time to myself, when I could think, that was kind of like my mantra. I would want to know everything that's going on. And when you're in that situation, you don't have time to scroll Twitter 100 hours a day. You don't have time to read every Tomahawk Nation article like I did when I was in high school. You don't have time to pay for 247 and check every update and actually read them. So that's a big part of how this channel started. It's became super entertaining. We've been lucky to have people from CBS, former FSU players. I've got my co-host Jen Santee, the amazing Jen Santee, Deshaun. We've had James Coleman. We did a lot with Chris Frazier. We've done a lot with Plant the Spear. All these different people. It's turned into a great thing. But that was the first kind of modus operandi of this thing. 1 hour, a couple times a week. Let me just give you all the information, keep you up to date on the rumors, the facts, what's going on, and that's where we're at. Got my guy Ramel Hayes in the chat, class of 2009 from Milton, Florida. What's up, Ramel? Appreciate you from joining in. Ghost Gang, Pretty Noel Girl. He says, "Are you outside in the dark?" No, it really stands out in here, but it's just the backdrop. I've also got a green screen, but I haven't got around to using that. But no, we're in the house with the dogs and everybody running around. But yeah, we are out in the middle of the woods. Basically, we got 5 acres out here, a bunch of horses and stuff. So might as well be out in the woods. But no, that's what everybody thinks. I don't know. That's why I added the lights. One of my favorite podcasts that I was listening to when I started this was Murder with My Husband. And I don't know if anybody watches that. If you're into crime stuff, it's a really good show. A couple YCs from up in the Midwest. They just do a really good job of talking about different murder mysteries and stuff. And this was their layout. I thought it looked good. So that's where I'm at on that. But let's get into this. I know you guys are dying to hear about the portal possibilities. I've talked a lot ad nauseum about kind of how hard it's going to be to get big time top players to commit, to come into this situation. You're risking a lot, especially third and fourth year players who are looking to show off in a single year and move on. Now, that does not preclude you from getting anybody. And I truly do think that a couple of these guys will hit. I think they will hit on a couple major players. Who that is remains to be seen. But you're just not going to be the top contender for 90% of the elite Keon Coleman's and guys of that nature that come in. Keon Coleman came to Florida State. Why? Jordan Travis proved he could pass, big time contenders. Cam Newton went to Auburn and Gus Malzahn because they were coming off 8 wins and a ton of momentum. Bam, primed for a title run, things of that nature. You just don't see that so much with 2-10 teams. And I'm trying not to be super negative here. I'm super positive. But guys, I'm just trying to reset your expectations. I get it. It's Florida State. Depending on what happens next year, this show will be completely different. If we get those 7 and 8 wins, we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about getting the absolute top guys out of the portal and all of that. But a couple guys that could make a big splash, could possibly like really change things for Florida State. I'm going to start with those, and then we'll get into the more realistic ones, okay? Prince. Oh, God, here we go. Prince. Unan Million. I can't do it. Unan Million. Prince Will Unan Million. The defensive end or edge from Nebraska. Here's a guy that we're in. Ole Miss is the favorite, I think, among everybody's kind of boards. But look, he's a Nebraska player. That gives you an in. Florida State has a fantastic history of DN play. I'm not sure how he fits. If he wants a change to go to one of these places and be an edge rusher, or if he's down to stay in the system and be a part of building something. But if one of those top names, you're going to be able to get him, it's him. Another really big name we've talked about a ton, not quite as big as Prince as far as the rankings can go, but a solid guy, a young player that's coming into his best football, is the defensive end, James Williams, also from Nebraska, literally, and I mean literally, calls pot roast like his father. So that one has been from the beginning 99% chance we think he gets here, but of course he hasn't committed yet, so we'll see. The next two names that I want to bring up are wide receiver names. Okay, the first one is Kevin Concepcion. Okay, it seems like a lottery pick or a fever dream. Doesn't seem like he would come here, but I'm going to make an argument for him to come here. I believe he initially we didn't make his top anything, but the last couple of days have moved up a little bit. All of a sudden, we're in his top 5 guys, working on getting a visit from him. Gus's offense and this offense going into next year, it's not going to be a thing where you take 4 wide receivers and they expect to all get the ball and do this and do that. But what Gus's offense has showed and these spreads have shown is that they're going to have a big guy, not to the level of a Georgia Tech where you get a Calvin Johnson or Demarius Thomas, and that's the only person you throw to. But a guy like Kevin Concepcion could come here and be the straight-up number 1 target and get the ball forced to him in man coverage. Get on these deep shots. Be the guy to take the shot. Really show off his route running, do the different things. I think he can come in here and be a killer. I think he could have a 1,000-yard season, do all the things if he buys in. And Ride Help Hand, I'm not sure. I want to say he's a sophomore. So he would have multiple years, possibly that next year in 2026 to get some stuff done. So not here to predict it or anything, but they're in for him, trying to get a visit. That could be a guy who could really highlight this portal class. You could get him in here and completely change your wide receiver room, just getting one guy. The other guy, I have not heard any information on getting a visit. Have they talked to him? Anything like that. But there is Deuce Robinson, a guy who was a freshman out at USC, a 5-star player, had 500 or 600 yards, just a freak. It's a steady ascent up. Now, what are they going to do? I'm not sure. No inside information here, but his father is Dominic Robinson, the FSU alumni. He works over at 247 sporadically, helps call the games, all that good stuff. So let's see there. If they could get a Deuce Robinson or a Kevin Concepcion, that would be really big. Really big. Some of the more possible targets is some tight ends. Tight end Terrence Carter from Louisiana, a lower division, but I believe he had 800 yards, something like that. And Mike Norvell absolutely loves this guy. He comes out and compares him to Jaheim Bell. And yeah, he could be a guy that comes in here. And to my point, people are really obsessed with getting guys from big schools and this and that. But I'm here to tell you, in this day in college football, if you can just execute, if you can do the things necessary at pretty much any level, and you've shown it consistently, I think it's going to convert. And I think he would definitely be a guy. Another one is Jaden Platt, one of these big-time wide tight ends that we were out after high school. He ended up going to Texas A&M, transfers out. Pretty sure they've already got an offer, or not an offer, but a visit, obviously an offer. If I bring up one of these names, chances are they have an offer. I'd say Deuce Robinson's the only one I don't know about, but yeah, they're probably going to give him an offer too. So Jaden Platt and Terrence Carter, there's 2 big names at tight end to look for. And there's a lot of other lesser names. Randy Pittman Jr. is another guy at tight end they've extended an offer to. So look out for those guys. They could really make a difference. The wide receiver, Reggie Virgil, I think that's shot. I don't think you're going to get a visit from him. He's one of these guys that is really, really, he's going to the people with a shit ton of money and a lot of momentum. If you were in Florida's spot where you had won 7 or 8 games this year and you're looking to play for a title next year, you might have a chance for him. But we'll see. They did offer. Who else? receivers. Mario Craver, a guy from MSU. I don't even know how I wrote this down, but Mario Craver he's a beast. He's somebody that I would take in a heartbeat. Another guy, Omega Blake, a guy I think they offered him today. So they've definitely got some guys. Expect him to take 2 or 3 wide receivers. And if we could get one of these big names, it would really, 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 really go a long way. Now, what is it all about? What is this transfer portal class really all about? Why was I so hyped to get Thomas Castellanos in here early? Why was I so hyped to get Gus Malzahn and then Herb Hand with him? Why? I'll tell you why. Because everybody wants to talk shit about UCF's offense, and he couldn't this and he couldn't that, and they want to talk about their NFL quarterbacks. Here's what they did do at UCF. Against the Power 4, they were 10th in running the football. 5.28 yards per carry. I don't know where Florida State was, but it was really, really low, and it was something like 2 yards per carry. So these guys are going to run the ball. They've got their quarterback in Thomas Castellanos. So now it's about offensive line. And here's some names to know. Marcellus Marshall just finished up his visit, came from UCF. Another offensive line that I don't know much about, Alex Walschlager, they offered. You've got Caden Kittle, another guy from UCF that they got on immediately. That I would, if I had a crystal ball, I'd probably crystal ball him here. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure if he's taken his visit yet. Another one that just hit today or yesterday, Gunnar Housen, upperclassman offensive lineman from Vandy, which would be another good get. Josh Brand from Arkansas. Let's see. That's it. Those are the main, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The main 6 offers that I found that they have out there. There's been questions. Some people have said 3 to 5 offensive linemen. I'm hoping they bring 5 to 7. And again, I don't care what level. I just want them to have tape doing it at the college level. FCS, JUCO, D1, it don't matter. Give me stats. Give me film at the higher level, not high school, and not in garbage time as a true freshman, against an FCS team when you're at a D1 place. So remember those names again: Caden Kittler, Gunnar Housen, Josh Brand, Alex Walschlager, Marcellus Marshall, Derek Simmons, and there's another one early on that I had, Xavier Payne. I don't know if they're still on him or not, but there's a bunch of names to look for on offensive line for you. And then linebacker. Linebacker's another big one. Guys, luckily, we got Omar Graham Jr. back, and we can build around him. He's a guy who got better and better and better and better as the season went on. I've been harped on him because he played like 48 snaps against Georgia Tech and somehow didn't, have a stat. Like it's almost impossible to do as a linebacker, especially in a 4-2-5. But yeah, I don't know what the deal with that is. But personally, at this point in time, I'm going to put that all down on Randy Shannon, not having him ready for week 1. Because also the guy who ended up being one of the better linebackers out of the bunch, Deuce Cryer, couldn't even get on the field that first week for some reason. What was that reason? He wasn't prepared because he played on special teams, so it didn't make any sense. While we're on defensive line, let's go ahead and talk about the defense. Let's talk about the defensive linemen they've offered. I already mentioned James Simmons earlier. Another guy that just hit the portal today, Lee Hunter. Okay, he was actually at Auburn. So he must be like a COVID 6th year because he was at Auburn. Gus recruited him there. He transfers to UCF with Gus and did really well there. 110 tackles, 21 tackles for loss the past 2 years. Big time get. If you get Hunter in here to man that either the nose tackle or one of the DN side positions at his size, that would be really, really big. I guess I didn't write a ton of defensive linemen. There's another defensive end, Nate Johnson, that I've got here. Defensive line, Jamari Butler from Nebraska is another one of these guys. So just to recap that, Jamari Butler from Nebraska, Prince Unamnielian from Nebraska, James Williams from Nebraska, and that latest one to look out for again, Lee Hunter from UCF. So a lot of names out there. So hopefully, again, this portal class only goes from the 9th to the 28th. It's already the 13th, only a few days in. To have our quarterback locked in, to have all these offensive linemen coming through, let's just hope we can get these guys committed quick, fast, in a hurry and get this thing planned for next year. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about there, William. That is Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle from UCF. Shout out to William making it in here. All the other guys, looks like a bunch of the same names here. Not going to shout you guys out. T. Murray looks like maybe a new one. Again, guys, usually we've got a whole cast of people on here, and we're going back and forth with opinions. We're going to get the call-in line show going eventually. I know everybody's been picking on me about that. Got to get that second line going back. But for now, if you have any questions, if there's anything you're wondering about, something that you see that pisses you off, other people say, throw it in the comments. I'll address it here now. But yeah, I think I'm fired up about what this thing can be. I think Florida State, I'm just not going to get swept up like I did last year. Last year, I really thought they had built a program. There was going to be a floor. You bring these guys in the portal as additions. You're going to do all this stuff. And then we went out here and won 2 games. There's been a lot of turnarounds. There's been schools that did this and did that. You know, LSU won 4 games, or Notre Dame won 4 games and then got it turned around pretty quick. But, you know, even, you know, you want to look at Arizona State and what they did. They had 3 wins, and then they jumped to 9 or 10 wins. Like, it's tough. It's going to be tough to see anything like that, especially in this conference. Now, the schedule is not quite as bad as it was last year, but building a culture, building a consistent, a run team with that nasty mentality, we've got to go out and see Alabama week 1. Hopefully, we can handle that, at least be in a ball game. And look, Georgia Tech, I think a big part of what happened this year is this Florida State team, its coaching staff, the players especially, did not respect Georgia Tech. They looked at Georgia Tech as a lesser program. Like, we've made fun of all this shit on here. Oh, they're a bunch of scientists and mathletes and things of that nature. Hey, we did all that. And then we got down there and we faced a team that pushed our offensive line and our defensive line back. I mean, just hit our ass. And still, hey, we still were in that game. You can go see the highlights of missed touchdown passes, missed this, missed that. The linebackers not making any tackles. And that was a 21-21 game. They kicked the field goal. They kicked the long field goal and won it, okay? With the benefit of hindsight, and you see Georgia Tech beat Miami, the best offense in the country. You see Georgia Tech take Georgia, a playoff team, the SEC champion, to 8 overtime. And wrong. Maybe if this team would have saw Georgia Tech as who they were, a top 30 team in the country that could play with anybody week in and week out, maybe they would have showed up a little bit different from that Boston College. But this team got down in the mouth, and kids quit. Kids quit. They said, this isn't what I signed up for, and they quit. And I read off that list of transfers, and I'm sure I missed some. There's several walk-ons that have transferred as well. But guys, Xavier Perkins, Carson Pylock, people like that transferred out. But guys, walk-ons don't even exist anymore. You basically have 105 scholarships. So that's another big part of this portal class. You can afford to take guys and push walk-ons out and really extend that thing. We probably won't touch that 105. We'll probably still have 10 walk-ons or something like that this year, but eventually that's all going away. In places like Clemson, they got to cut 30 or 40 of them. So, yeah. William with the $5 super chat. We appreciate you, brother. Just a good old go Knowles. He didn't have a question or anything like that, but we sure appreciate every super chat. Makes this stuff, makes me be able to do a lot more stuff for you guys and cover the bills and all that. So we really appreciate it. People talking about we're the laughing stock right now. I don't believe it, man. I get what you're saying. People are upset, and like the standard's a standard. Like, we just went from 13 to 2 wins. Why can't we bounce back 11 wins? Who knows? Maybe we will. But the hardest thing, and this is what every coach you've ever heard, every coach I've ever listened to, talked to in person, talked to on the phone, former players, the hardest thing to do in college football is avoid complacency, to keep a steady program, okay? It's very rare. It's hard to do. You see guys have success, and it never worked out again, okay? Gus Malzahn had it. He's had that. His first year as a coordinator, national championship at Auburn. His first year as the head coach at Auburn, national championship. But then you have a couple down years and then another good year. A couple down years and another good year. Gets to UCF, wins 9 games. Looks like everything's going to be peachy and you're going to build a perennial power. And here you are in year 4. It was the worst that it ever was. Okay. Same thing for Mike Norvell. That was his issue. Okay. Complacency setting. Say we're the laughing stock. I think us being the laughing stock is the best possible thing for the coaching staff, for the locker room, for everybody, for the people coming in. You know, you're not going to get the prima donnas. You're going to get guys that are just locked in and work. You're going to get a Thomas Castellanos who it's a dream, played quarterback at Florida State, and he's going to be more than happy to do whatever he can do in this offense. I've gotten back to this conversation because I went back and forth with my buddy Kelvin Hunt from Chop Chat on Twitter today, just kind of talking, you know, Auburn or Gus Malzahn and what his offense is, how much it really is different from Mike Norvell's. Can it foster NFL talent? Can it do this? Can it do that? And what I keep going back to when it comes to Gus Malzahn, this offense, this team, what it might be, when it comes to bringing in quarterbacks, specifically the quarterbacks that everybody wants, the 3rd, 4th year guys, or the red shirt freshman that's just, going to be the next Cam Newton, all those things. It's about what can your offense do for me? What, if I come play in your offense, what will it do for me? What will it improve in my game? How can it make me a better quarterback, get me over the hump to be an NFL player? It is not, what can I do for your offense? It's not, I'm Caden Salter, and I can throw it over the yard, but I can run it too. So I can come in and do these design runs for y'all, and it'll be great. No, that's not what it is. It's everybody's telling me I'm a dual threat and I'm a runner, so I want to go somewhere that can prove I'm a passer and do all the things. Okay, he brought up Jaden Daniels, which is a good point. I thought it was out of bounds because there's so many examples of Gus quarterbacks that went on to other places to have success. And it's like, yeah, Jaden Daniels, he ran it 100 times. But you know what else he did? He threw for 40 touchdowns and almost 4,000 yards. And that's something that just does not happen in Gus Malzahn's offense. Now, maybe this is his lucky year. Maybe all of a sudden, that's what this offense will do. It'll show off NFL passing concepts and get guys drafted. But for 15 years, it hasn't done that. And you can blame it on his recruiting and where he is and the choices he made, but that's who you hired, and these are the choices he's going to make. He had 30 touchdowns with Cam Newton. That was it. Okay. I can't remember if it's Bo Nix or Gabriel. I get confused. But one of those guys, he had another year, his second best year, where they had 29 touchdowns, and he had more of a passer. So, yeah, they passed it more than they normally did. Used more of those concepts. But what did they do? They ended up going other places and throwing for 1,000 more yards and 10 touchdowns. All of them. They're outside of a fourth round pick from Jared Stidham, who, like, he got fired or left or it sat him for 2 years, whatever the case may be. It's just not the MO. Now, what it is, yeah, hell yeah, you can name any pro-style quarterback, dual threat in the country. Sure, they could definitely work in Gus's offense, and they could make Gus's offense take it to the next level like Cam Newton did. But what it can't do, what it doesn't do, is take a guy who has all these questions about his arm and can he throw at the NFL level, and that's what he's showing out to do. It's not going to take him and put him over that hump. It just doesn't. That's just my opinion. Everybody has their opinions. I respect the hell out of Kelvin and his opinion. I've been asking him to come on the show. We've had him on several times. I'd love to debate it with him. But yeah, we shall see what happens. I think he brought Castellanos in because he wants a quarterback that can run, that can make up for even, like, no matter what we do, this offensive line isn't going to be the best in the country. It's not going to be, Alabama 2012 or whatever, 2011 style offensive line. It's going to help to have a quarterback. And yeah, Mike and his system are similar, but Mike wanted to throw it a lot more, different ways, 3, 5, and 7 drops, step drops, all those things. How many designed runs did Jordan Travis go? Yeah, Jordan ran it a ton, but 90% of the time it was extending plays and taking them. And that's something that I don't know. I'm in love with it. I think Thomas Castellanos is the perfect guy for this. I know I'm alone in that. To come in here in 1 year to make a difference, we'll see. Maybe they really meld it and the offense looks almost exactly the same. But I'm thinking closer to what he did at Auburn, especially for this year. And then, as I said, if Thomas Castellanos can go ball out, if he can win 7 or 8 games, then maybe you can get that passer. And Yanni says he has 2 years. He played his 5 games as a freshman, but I guess one was a bowl game. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe Castellanos balls out this year and they're able to, move to more passing next year. Yeah, I'm with it. I'm with Thomas Castellanos. I know the fan base is split on it, but that's just my 2 cents. I don't think I'm leaving anything out. I'm trying to remember if there's something I haven't reported to you guys. Yeah. Love y'all. Chase, Play Cool jumps in the chat. Appreciate you for joining us. A lot of the other people, KH joined the chat. Appreciate everybody. Pretty Noel Girl always, as always, making it rain. Tomcat, I think next year the teams will play us just like they did this year. Stack the box, shut down the run, and make a guy who can't throw the ball, and he fumble a lot. That sounds good and well, but they would have did that shit to him at Auburn and UCF too. We are going to throw the ball. It's not like we are going to not throw the ball, but there's a difference in running to throw up, to running to set up the throw, and passing to set up the run. We talked about it all year. They never committed to the run. They would get going with the run, and then as soon as they got down the field, they'd pull out Toafili, bring in the true freshman, and pass it 3 times in a row. The next drive, they'd come out, pass it 3 times in a row. Literally, this happened all the time, all year long. This year, and it was a big statement in Gus's conference note, they are going to commit to running the football. It's just not that as simple as packing the box. The offense is good enough. He has enough passing concepts, and Thomas Castellanos is good enough to where if they stack the box and it's man coverage, he can get it out there. His issues at Boston College, from what I've seen with him throwing picks and things of that nature, were him sitting back in the pocket at 5'9", trying to read coverages, throwing back into 5, 6, 7-man secondaries. So I don't know. I have 100% faith in Malzahn's ability to use window dressing, do all the things, and make it work. Covering the quarterback run game versus covering the conventional run game is very different. If you have an RPO and they stacked 8 guys in the box and you do a good job on the fake and everybody crashes inside, somebody with his speed is going to be able to get outside and get big yards. And after you do that, oh shit, then the linebackers have to back up and maybe he hits you with a draw. Okay, if they continue to stack the box, they're going to sneak a wide receiver, a tight end, somebody back there. We'll probably see that play we saw with Marcuston Douglas where he lines up as a tackle with 2 wide receivers off the line of scrimmage where he's an eligible passer. We'll see stuff like that. I get all the concerns and the questions. I don't think after 15 years of being one way, he's going to come in here and be a different way. Jeff Hill, my guy with the $5 super chat, the cousin of the infamous Waffle House coordinator, says, I agree with you because I think this system does run fits. His skill set was in a pro set at Boston College with his skill. That was a little jacked up from his voice to text thing, my guy there, Jeff, but I know what he means. He's referring to the reason people are so down on Thomas Castellanos is because of this year he had with Bill O'Brien. And I've said this a million times, but it's the same Bill O'Brien that got ran out of Alabama because he wouldn't coach Jalen Milroe as a quarterback, didn't think he could do it. He left, and what happened? Oh, Jalen Milroe was a Heisman candidate. Everybody said this and that. They made the playoffs in 22. The next year, coaching change, all that. Jalen Milroe still very impressive numbers, not quite as good, but a 9-3 football team, ran for a ton of yards, 2% yards. Yeah, I see the perfect quarterback for a system. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe him being 5'9" and he caused everything to be a problem. Let's see. Pretty old girl says, if OU can beat Bama, so can we. Bama get hit, but they need weapons. Bama can get hot, but they need weapons. Yeah, and Bama, this isn't Nick Saban's Bama either. This is They don't really know who their quarterback's going to be. Uh, Tomcat says, "Trust me, I hope I'm wrong." And I get it. Hey, and here's my thing: like Tomcat, they could be right, and that's not the future. And we got to get better quarterbacks. Gus doesn't recruit them well enough. That's his problem. If he could just get him there to stay, he could have success. All that's true. But if you can be right, if I can be wrong and he can still win 7 or 8 games, all of a sudden, all those things mixed with what Mike brings, more like his side of the offense, a chance to go get those guys. Pretty Old Girl, I'm not sure. I was just, catching up on an Alabama podcast. They said they weren't sure. I'm not sure if he's thinking about Portland or hitting the NFL or whatever, but they were talking about him possibly not being there next year and what they were going to do, whether portal quarterback in or go with Ty Simpson and I forget the younger guy, but they've got a stud, a really stud quarterback that's a redshirt freshman, kind of like we had with Luke, to where they want to keep him happy and keep him as the backup. They compare him to Nico Iamaleava over at Tennessee, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, and I'll close this off because I know 7-5, which I said would be a smashing success, doesn't sound sexy. What if that 7-5 includes you beating Bama, Miami, and Florida, or Miami and Florida and losing to Bama? Beat Bama and Miami and lose. Like, not all 7 wins are made equal. You lose to Bama, Miami, and Florida, and the only games you win are the FCS and this and that. It's going to stink. But again, just go check the facts. We can talk opinions and what we think, but if you go look it back at our guy Gus Malzahn's career, every single place he's been, year one, major turnaround, people can't stop the defense or people can't stop his offense and things get going. So these teams that we play this year, like it's one of these things. College football goes in waves. It goes in waves. So for years and years and years, it was all about the pro style. And then the spread came around. It was all about the spread. Well, now we've got to a point. It's a lot different everywhere, but there's very few people that are running an offense like Gus. You've got a different variation of it in the go-go offense out there in UNLV, and all of a sudden it kicks all these people's asses. You got SMU coming here and running this offense and having a ton of success, and defenses as well. 90% of schools run the 4-2-5. So I think him having a run-heavy quarterback, if he gets back to his roots, like I'm thinking, really, really commit to the run. You bring in the 3-3-5. You show different looks on defense. There's all kind of chances for Florida State to really put it together and have some great games. They're going to have to get the recruits to what Yanni was saying. Like, yeah, we've got to get at least 5 offensive linemen. We've got to get the front step and pick. We've got to do those things. We need to get a number 1 receiver in here. Yeah, I hear you, Melly Mel Shays. 7 wins is not acceptable. We need a minimum 7 wins. 7 wins is not acceptable at Florida State, not in a vacuum. But this isn't a vacuum, It is what it is. I'm not saying it's great, but for the coaching staff and for this thing to survive, it is. Anything less than 7 wins, chances are they blow this whole thing up, and we're right back to bringing in a brand new coach and all that good stuff. But yeah. By the way, Dan Mullen to UNLV. Yeah, Dan Mullen takes over for Barry Odom at the UNLV. Dan Mullen was my number 1 wish to come to Florida State. If he had come here, I wouldn't be having these conversations with people. The fan base probably wouldn't be as split. They'd be fired up about whoever he brings in here, because even though he runs a spread as well, and that's what he was famous for, Tim Tebow, folks like that, his thing has evolved and a lot more, NFL quarterback friendly. So he was my number 1 pick, but I didn't think he would be willing to come back for an OC position. Whether he would or not, we'll never know. But him taking the head coaching job at UNLV, which is pretty far removed from Mississippi State, Florida, etc., I think that pretty much answers your question. So yeah, Jeff Hill comes in with another $10 super chat. Gus had a top 25 offense. Tony White in Nebraska, a top 25 defense. We get the right players on both sides of the ball. I think we will be okay. Yeah. If they can replicate that, shit, they can replicate that. I would love more than anything in the world to come in here and say I was wrong. Holy shit, we're going to win the ACC. But I'm just not ready to make that prediction. I think going through what we went through this year, we were only competitive. Well, it's not even that we lost 10 games. We were only competitive in 3 games all year. 3 games. You go back to all these coaches. Saban, his first year, he at Alabama only won 7 games. This guy did that. It's like it's going to be tough. We'll see. Maybe the schedule, maybe some teams aren't as good as they were this year, and everything's cyclical in college football. But we'll see where the Vegas odds come out. But if I had to guess, the Vegas odds are going to be somewhere from 6 to 8 wins. We shall see. We shall see. But there's a whole lot of rebuilding going on, and there's not a whole lot to look at that's left on this team coming back that you can hang your hat on. There just is not. We'll see how many guys we can get from Nebraska, how many we can get from UCF. But to me, next year, being competitive in all 12 games and pulling out 7, 8 wins, that is one hell of a year. And you start telling lies again for next year. We'll see. But Yanni, you're full of shit. Ask bottom barrel teams, Indiana, SMU, even Dilly. They didn't do it. They didn't. They did not. Old dude did not get to SMU this year. Kenny Dillingham did not get to Arizona State this year. He won 3 games last year. He brought in Jaden Rashada, and he transferred out just like Luke Kromenhawk did, and they went and took a no-name guy out of the portal, and they put their heads down, and they won a weak-ass conference and made it, okay? It's not it's all apples to oranges. No shitty team that was 2-10 brought in some NFL quarterback and all these NFL defensive linemen and made a big turnaround in 1 year. If I'm wrong, you tell me. Yeah, counting conference championships. And like I said, if we win 7 games next year, even if this was year 1 of a staff and you only won 3 or 4 games, then you can look at it, a big jump like that. And maybe, I'm not saying it's out of the ordinary, but to think of that as a locked-in thing and likely, you're living in fucking la-la land. And again, that's just my opinion. I've been wrong plenty of times. I've been right. Just hit the nail on the head with these staff picks in the portal so far. But that's just reading the tea leaves, guys. Everything I say, people want to say I'm an asshole and this and that. And same thing on the last show when I told them all Papuchis was going to coach linebackers. I'm crazy. But I was on Chris's show. I talked Gus Malzahn here before anybody did. Nobody was even talking about it at all. It came up in a space, and then me and him talked about it on his show and my show and his show back to back. And then a week later, he was the offensive coordinator. Everybody was hollering at me then there. James says it all the time. You don't have to be an insider to read the tea leaves. Like, some of this shit is just obvious. Kevin Herman, my guy Pee Wee joins the chat. Yes, I am an asshole. And the folks that really know me from around town and grew up with me, yeah, womanizer, asshole, all that stuff. Been into a lot of bad shit in my life, but yeah, I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to be better for you guys. Keep the consistency. Got my life going good. We're stone cold sober over here, having a good time. I love all you guys. I love Florida State football more than anything in the world. I can't tell you how mad it hurt me to have to get on here 2 or 3 times and talk shit about my team. Like I told you guys at the beginning of this, like, it was my mantra, FSU football, FSU football. When I was down and out, having a shitty time on the job or whatever the case may be, like, that's my thing. So you think, like, it literally hurt my soul knowing, and I know, not trying to like puff my chest out, I know that a ton of former players, even coaches and things, have watched this show. I know because I go to the spring games and go to a couple games every year. I meet them. I speak to them. I've been lucky enough to talk to these guys on the phone, have them on the show. So knowing that I'm on here talking shit, and not as much, like, I don't make as many jokes as Jen and Tiny Hat. Like, Tiny Hat, that's what he does. They have fun with it. To me, yeah, I told you, I just want to give you guys the information, talk about this, and yeah, it is what it is. It's tough. You got to be honest. So I'm trying to be honest with the expectations here. God, I hope I'm true. I will be so here for like the beginning of October. If we're 4-0, we done took out Alabama and Clemson, and you guys are in here saying, "Look, George, we told you it could happen." I'm gonna be so happy. I'll be like, "You guys are right." Pull up all the old stuff. Yanni says, "Mr. Steal Your Girl." I don't know about that. definitely not in this day and age. In my younger days, I didn't do right by the women in this community. I think I got the same story that a lot of young men have. Fell in love with that first one. It broke my heart. I took it out on women for a good 5 years. Fell in love with another one. Took it out for another couple years. Fell in love, fell in love with another chick. Dated her for 2 or 3 years, and that was about 5, 6 years back. So I'm 33. It's been a while, but I don't know. We get back out here, get some shit fixed up on me. Uh, Start hanging out with some girls again. Um, I hung out with this chick named Griselda in Orlando for the LSU game last year. Um, that was my last womanizing thing. But I think she kind of used me too. Kind of found me at the pool out there and dragged me into a room. It was the whole thing. But Jeff Hill with another $10 super chat. I grew up watching them through the 80s and 90s. I get real spoiled winning. So when we had season where we just started losing, I wanted to use it. I wasn't used to it. This is the worst I've ever seen. And it is. I mean, it's literally the worst season Florida State has ever had. There's some 1 and 2 win teams, I think, back from the 50s and 60s when they were first starting. But yeah, no. Hire says George only dated 8s and above in his prime years. Yeah, that's a fact. My issue was kind of like a lot of the Florida State fans. They look at it and they see Florida State. We deserve nothing better. We got to have this flashy, beautiful thing out of the port. Okay. They weren't taking the girl who's badass at cooking and cleaning, maybe a little chubby, but just a beautiful person, probably going to be beautiful in 10 years, out of high school and all those things. No, I went after the beautiful, absolutely crazy ones. That was my deal. And if I got in with one that was that kind of, homemaker, God-fearing, sweet girl, I ran her off real quick, or she saw my true colors. That's just how it is. But yes, I dated a chick from Navarre High School. She was a cheerleader. Oh man, I thought she was the baddest thing around. None of my friends could believe it. That was my first one. Then whoop, that went down the drain. A couple here and there that broke my heart that I fell in love with it. That just no. They would find out about my exploits on the weekends, hanging out with the older crowd and the younger crowd. I was one of those people that was with the high school people during the week, the graduated people on the weekends, and the adults, sometimes as well. Doing, Thursday nights at Seville, all that good shit. So yeah, I had my time, and then recently, shoot, I can't even remember. It's been so long. It's 2020 to 2022 or 2019 to 2021. I fell in love with an Indonesian princess. I mean, and she was gorgeous. I mean, the most beautiful thing in the world. That one was love and lust, Wilmer. But she was ready to have a baby, get married, do all that stuff. She was wanting to go in the Air Force, all this different stuff. And yeah, I was still running around, hitting the perks and all that good stuff at that point in time. So I kind of let her down. But I'm ready. I've got my life straightened out. I've got all you guys to hang out with 3 or 4 times a week. So we're going to get it in. We're going to find us a Florida State chick somewhere and live happily ever after here on the farm with the dogs and the horses and everybody else. But guys, again, thank you guys for joining me. I know it's not the same shows we normally do, just myself, but we had 250 people in here for most of the show. So again, really appreciate you guys. I'll give y'all a second. If anybody has any more questions, ask them now. If not, we'll cut this off, and we'll see you guys Tuesday at 7 Eastern for the Renegade Rundown. Of course, Monday, I always say that backwards. Monday for the Renegade Roast with Tiny Hat CEO and Jen Santee. Tuesday for the Renegade Rundown right here. And we'll see what happens. I've been teasing coming back to the noon shows on Sunday like we did last year. It just hasn't come around. We'll still see how things goes. If a couple guys hit, we get a couple commitments, some things happen, or I can line up a guest for Sunday. We'll see you guys Sunday at noon. William says, do you think we go after Hunter Lee? Absolutely. 100%. I would not doubt if you get him right down here. Again, this isn't a guy that just, was inherited at UCF. He followed Gus Malzahn from Auburn to UCF. So unless he figured, oh, well, that shit didn't work, I'm not doing it again. 90% of this stuff comes down to relationships and fit. Yeah, I think he could definitely come. So we'll see what happens there. And, fingers crossed on Kevin Concepcion and some of these bigger names, Prince Unan Mielian. Obviously, James Williams, we want to get him in here. We got to get some of these linebackers. Stephon Thompson, if I had to bet, would be more likely linebacker to get here soon. Maybe Mikael Boyer or whatever hell his name is, the other Nebraska guy. There's Trotter from West Virginia. We'll see. There's a lot of names out there, and these will really get pared down, and we'll start to hear about who's possibly going to commit and those things. So hopefully we'll have some more of that Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or whenever we see it. But go Noles, baby. I'll get out of here and leave y'all with we'll just run the regular promo.